Uh, how's your boyfriend? I see. Joey, what's up? How's work? Oh yeah? Any good movies out there?
Not right now, yes.
When is Harry Potter out?
The
December?
already finished showing
Harry Potter?
yeah, they were re-showing them, but that was like last month.
Oh, yeah. Caden, what's going on? Good. Adrian, what's going on, man? This is a very lively class.
It's getting smaller and smaller.
Tyrell, hello. So, what do you guys want to talk about today? Avi, hello. How are you? I'm well, thank you. Thank you for your text. Who was up there yesterday? It's a big guy, right? Yeah, yeah. Mustache? No mustache? Huh. Hello. Kids are good? How are you, man?
Fixed my computer.
Yeah.
Swamped with work, I guess.
Yeah. Oh. So, Lark, you have anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, last time I asked the question, I kind of remember what it was. I think it was about uh, the inconsistency of like moods.
A what? Oh, moods. Okay. Danielle, how are you? Anything you want to talk about?
Last time to think of something.
Yes. Tammy?
Um, I would like to hear your input on human complacency. I don't know if that's good or bad. I feel like the older I get, the harder it is for me to kind of break away from being complacent. I don't know. I don't think it's good.
Okay. So, moods, complacency, just being lazy. Joy? Hello. How are you? Ah, it's good to see you. Sorry, Joey, you were saying? Of course. Adrian?
I'm doing the second assignment, the inspiration changes and one like more. Like you-
Inspiration and what?
Inspiration and change.
Oh, inspiration and change. Okay, so inspiration, change, complacency, moods. Okay. Caden, anything? Avi? Anything? Daniel, yes.
Yeah.
What? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't have much to say about any of those things. Tyrell, did you want to talk about anything? I'm old, but not deaf. What was the question again? I can't hear you. I'm old and deaf. And what? What'd you say?
Spirituality. Oh.
I was just joking. I have nothing, nothing better to do except to harass people. May I ask why you ask?
I miss my and I really
You want to sit up here?
I'll be closer.
I like your question, but you're just so far away. How about like,
This one.
so that's Tyrell, huh? Up close and personal.
I just find it really interesting. Like, I'm really interested in like the chakra, like
Chocolate?
Chakra.
the chakra alignment, and I don't know. I find it very cool. I don't know your thoughts on it.
Do you like Indian food?
I haven't tried it.
You've never had chicken tikka masala?
So good.
Look, forget Ariana Grande. You need what? Oh, once you have chicken tikka masala, you won't even talk about Ariana Grande anymore. The reason I ask if you've had chicken tikka masala, why do you keep smiling or laughing or? These are such difficult things to talk about. It's just difficult being here. Can I share with you a poem in Persian? It's all Danielle's fault. Where's Colin? He's probably hanging out with his friends. You live at home with your parents? You live at home with your parents? With your mom? You have siblings? You're the only one? So, I suppose before we can talk about spirituality, and I must tell you, I'm no expert on that particular subject. In fact, I run away from it whenever I hear of it or close to it or whatever. Adrian, what are you doing? No, you doing your homework? Yeah, okay. If you could type like slower so I can't hear it. So, Tyrell, some of us in this class are a little older than you are. How old are you? What? I feel like I'm in high school. So I want to tell you how my day unfolds, and Tammy's and Abby's and Denise. I mean, you are dealing with four very, very miserable little animals here. You ever see that movie Elizabeth, the first one that came out in the 1980s? I think the movie begins with this advisor who has been exiled. He's like staying in this room. He has a servant or a young kid who helps him with things, and all of a sudden he pulls out a knife, a dagger, this young man, and puts this dagger to the advisor, the king or queen, this juggler. And then this old man tells this young kid, whatever it is you want to do it quickly. You have a feeling, and then you stand back and you examine the feeling, and all of a sudden it just goes away, and you begin to self-doubt if what you're doing is right or wrong. And then, of course, the young man doesn't kill him, doesn't cut his jugular. The old man gets up, walks to the window, looks into the world and says, look out there. There is so little beauty in the world. You know what happens when you eat the same food over and over and over again? When you hang out with the same people over and over again? Or you look yourself in the mirror and you see the same face over and over again, and you have the same conversation with your friends or with yourself, and you write the same nonsense in your journal every day. After a while, you just get lazy. You become complacent. You've been exposed to too many of the same things over and over and over again that you pray for some escape. Woody Allen, some years ago, came out with this movie called Whatever Works. Tyrell? Whatever Works. I mean, why do you like Ariana Grande? I'll tell you. You don't have to tell me. Of all the things under the sun, the only thing you focus on is Ariana Grande, the concert that she has. And you hope that somehow, magically, you'll wake up one morning and under your pillow are 2 tickets. Of course, by then you'll come to believe in angels and ghosts and spirits and God and all that. That from above they look down and there's Tyrell, a miserable little rat. And yes, you. And let's give him or her some tickets. And there he is. Great anticipation. You iron some clothes, you call your friends, you're excited. There is this excitement in your voice. And your mom looks at you and she's happy for you, even though she doesn't really like Ariana Grande. And there you go. And everybody's screaming and shouting, and there you are waiting impatiently for this stick of a woman. I mean, she's really thin, stick, to walk on the stage and start singing with her big, beautiful voice. And all of a sudden you grow wings. And it's like Palestine doesn't exist, poverty doesn't exist, cruelty and viciousness don't exist, Tyrell don't exist, and all the issues that live inside Tyrell don't exist. You find yourself in the Garden of Eden for maybe an hour, maybe two. Then, of course, your body begins to complain. You've been standing for too long. I want to go home. Hello. You're desperately looking for some tickets to the concert by Ariana Grande because everyday life really has nothing to offer you. What you really want is to grow some wings, and the only way you can grow those wings is by finding yourself in the concert. This class doesn't do much for you. The questions people ask don't much do for you. The books you read, the conversations you have. I'm not saying that there is nothing exciting or inspiring out there, but the lifespan is so short. Ariana Grande, man. First, she's your hero. Second, you have projected a lot of things, a lot of gifts to her that she doesn't really deserve, but that's besides the point. I mean, that's what love does. You give this other person things that they're not really qualified for, they don't really deserve it. You know, it's like a woman falling in love with a man who's serving life in prison. You know, that woman thinks that the guy she's, pen paling with is like the Messiah. You know, she doesn't care if like he has beheaded, 50 people. That's what love does. And I suppose what I'm trying to suggest is what Woody Allen had mentioned some years ago, that especially now for us, this is no longer the Middle Ages. You walk around, you don't see churches. I mean, have you been to Italy? You should go to Italy. Not because there's anything interesting. It's just that every 5 minutes, there are 5 churches, And it's not that people are religious, they're not. Just, nice to be around those monuments. It began some 2,500 years ago, where Socrates comes forth and says, forget faith, forget love, forget beauty. What should be most interesting for you is the examined life. Use your head, not your heart. Do you know what happens when you sit and begin to examine why you do what you do? Why you like Ariana Grande? You kill your soul with your reflection. That's what happens. You don't refine it, you kill it. And so a part of your soul gets contaminated by Socrates. And then you get further contaminated by a man named Jesus Christ. I mean, you're a Jew, you don't need to feel anything. You just go to the synagogue, you read some words, you believe in some fairy tale. And he just comes and says, no, the letter of the law is no good. Why do you want to just have sex with someone? Fall in love, the spirit. That's most important. And all of a sudden, conflicts begin. All of a sudden, you find yourself in a mood where you want to think. But then feelings come out and says, no, don't think, feel. You just don't know which way to go, feeling or thinking. And then, miraculously, Jesus arrives. For 1,000 years, all you do is feel. There is nothing down here. What is it? You get married, some BS ceremony. You don't get married because you found your soulmate. You get married because the culture just tells you you're going to get old, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. You don't have kids because you know what it means to be a parent. First, it's a biological need, then a psychological need, and it's just what people do. You don't question it. It's just what the culture prescribes. And then everything falls apart with the presence of Martin Luther around the 15th century. The Catholic Church is corrupt. I mean, here you are, Tyrell. You only listen to music that gives wings to your soul and you fly to the sky. There you meet God. You don't much care about money. You don't much care about physical beauty. It's all about soul. The dominating philosophy for 1,000 years is what benefit is there for Tyrell to go and hear Ariana Grande and lose her soul? So everything for 1,000 years were about your soul. Everything was. Nobody asked about how do I be spiritual. You just are. And just in case you don't want to be spiritual, the culture pushes you into it. We call it the veil of tears. You come down here not to smile. You come down here not to have joy, not to be happy. You come down here and you cry because you're homesick, because you're a fallen angel. And all you do is you think about God, read God, hear God. That's what you do. People don't know how to read. They go somewhere and they hear the New Testament. And the New Testament is not spoken, it's sung. Every day is like Ariana Grande. And then you see death and destruction all around you. We call it the bubonic plague. And you know, pain, it forces you to feel, but more importantly, it forces you to think.
Yeah.
You know what happens when you're around death all the time? You're paralyzed. You know, I'm complacent. I know I'm going to die. You know, I'm going to get old. I know time is short, but what the hell do I do with this knowledge? I don't know what to do with it. I mean, it's one thing to know. It's a different thing to act on what you know. You need resources, you need tools, you need lots of different things. Then time passes. There are no longer villages, you know. You have big cities, big factories. Oakland. Have you walked around Oakland, Tyrell? What do you see? What's the common denominator? Concrete. Concrete. There are no churches. People are just loud. Music is bad. People smell bad, look bad, taste bad. Every shop you go, everywhere you walk, they're just trying to sell you things. That's what happens with the Industrial Revolution. Just factories everywhere, shops everywhere. You're just a piece of meat. You just work. If you watch the movie The Matrix, you're just reduced to a Duracell battery. People use you, and once they're done, you're no longer considered. You're no longer interesting. And all of a sudden you have a change in human philosophy. You don't get married because you're aware that you're going to get old, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. You get married because you're with your soulmate now. You have romanticized marriage now. You love now. You can't just get a job. It has to be an extension of your soul. You can't just be a regular Joe Schmo who survives and then dies. You're unique. You're Tyrell. And there is only one Tyrell. And then you get contaminated by the philosophies of someone like Friedrich Nietzsche or some idiot like Jean-Paul Sartre or Martin Heidegger. Be authentic. Be yourself. For the longest time in human history, that would be offensive. Be yourself. Are you kidding? What self are you talking about? You know, live a passionate life. You know what a burden that is? No talent. You're just a regular chap. And now you have to carry this huge cross that your life is special. You are unique. You are spiritual. And so fast forward to 2025. Look at the movies that come out. Look at the people that you encounter. Look at the conversations. Look at the advertisements on TV. Look at the classrooms. Everything is about treating you as a piece of meat. But there is something about us, and I must say, I think myself too, I'm just condemned that I'm not really quite sure what it is that you're looking for, but it seems that whatever it is, life can give it to us. You wanted marriage, there it is. You wanted children, there they are. You want a big house, there it is. You want to get a degree, there they are. Just not enough. We are condemned to feel the hollowness of life once in a while. And so you gravitate to this old tradition philosophy of life. The kingdom of God lives inside you. It's just hidden under an avalanche of garbage. Grade, loneliness, depression, obligations, responsibilities. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche has this, despite my profound dislike and even hatred for the existentialists, they do come up with some really fantastic stories. You know, when you're born, no one needs to teach you how to laugh. You just have a belly laugh every single day. I mean, consider that stupid game, Peekaboo. It's a silly, stupid, nonsensical thing that parents do, and yet kids find it funny. And they begin to laugh uncontrollably. And then what happens when you encounter someone who just laughs and laughs and laughs? Well, it's contagious. You as a parent laugh as well. And then you catch yourself. This is really stupid. Then all of a sudden something happens to you, Tyrell. We call it culture. You become a camel. You're no longer an innocent child. You're a camel. And you know what camels do, right? Camels live in the desert. It's hot, it's scorching. There is no life in the desert. It's just sand. They go without food, they go without sleep, they go without water for almost 40 days and 40 nights. If you have a job, I doubt very much your boss ever comes to you and says, "So, Tyrell, is this job like nourishing your soul?" No, nobody cares. You're a camel. You have to go to school. You have to say yes to your mom once in a while. You have to conform to the ways of society. You have to say yes to certain bodily needs. Society creates emotions inside you, sells you advertisements. It creates for you this thing called the superego. Ariana Grande is great. Something about your own organism hears Ariana Grande and just feels inspired. And you don't really know why. You just know that she has a great voice. I mean, that's a burden you got to carry, man. And then there comes a point you just say, "I'm just carrying too much." Home Depot, going to class, you know, I see images of children starving to death in Palestine, cruelty, injustice. It's just too much. What the hell do I do with all this? I gotta write essays for a class I don't care for teachers I don't really respect, for books that are not interesting, for ideas that just suck, for people I don't want to hang out with. At a certain point, you just get tired. Tired of carrying all this stuff. So your knees begin to break. You sit and you wiggle and all the bags you've been carrying. And keep in mind, the bags that you carry coming to school, you may not like it, but it does give you meaning on Mondays and Wednesdays. In the long run, Ariana Grande is just a piece of shit. But it does give you meaning and hope and inspiration. All the bags that you carry and you hate, they give you meaning and purpose. At least you know what you don't like. You know, someone who has no emotions on the inside, they have no purpose, they have nothing to hold on to. At least if I don't like my father, I can sit and write in my journal how much I hate him. But take that hate away from me, what do I write now? There's nothing interesting out there. At a certain point, you just get tired of all the emotions that you carry, all the thoughts that you carry, all the burdens of society that you carry. I mean, that's a revolt. You rebel against life and you say no. All you know is that life is no longer nourishing you.
Is finding real truth or personal truth?
Say again.
Is finding real truth or personal truth more important?
What did he say?
Come on.
Where are we going? Is what?
Is finding real truth or personal truth more important?
I don't know what real truth is. But you got to find what works for you. But that usually doesn't happen. So going back to Tyrell's dilemma and then attaching it to your question and then Tammy's. So, Tyrell. Tyrell. So you're not carrying any bags and you're just sitting complacently in the middle of the desert, and there's a reason as to why you're sitting. You're tired of running and chasing after things that have proven to be of no value. Nothing can inspire you. Nothing can excite you. You drag yourself out of the bed. Now you say no, you just sit. You don't know what you're looking for. All you know is that what you've been carrying is no longer as interesting. Now comes the tough part. You try to talk about what you're going through with your friends, but remember you're in the desert. You know, if you go to an Amish country, no one cares about cell phones or TVs. No one cares to hear your story about having sex before marriage. That's just they're not interested. So as you try to talk about your scenario to your friends live in the city. It's lush, it's green. For them, it's full of life. For you, it's all these dead men walking. And then you feel very, very alone. And in aloneness, you feel lonely. And in loneliness, you feel sad. In sadness, you have sorrow. And in sorrow, you get depressed. If you are lucky, at this stage, the Greeks would call you a tiny little horse that they call Pegasus. You're tired of walking. Where exactly do you go with your feet, Tyrell? Bathroom, Trader Joe's, around the lake? If you're lucky, you will run into a Malcolm X. In your case, Ariana Grande. The problem with Ariana Grande is that you'll grow wings for about 2, 3, 4 hours. And then when the concert is over, you will remember the concert and the feelings. That will last for about maybe a week or so. before it slowly fades and goes into some dungeon inside you. And once in a while amongst your friends you'll talk about it. But for the most part, Ariana Grande is done for you. She can no longer carry you. The wings are gone. If you are lucky, since your question was about the spiritual game, you will run into a Socrates. Now, Socrates also is like a Trader Joe's. He wants to sell you things. The problem with Socrates is that he wants to sell you things that you can't see, and you can't touch, and you can't taste just yet. Now, you have two issues. If you're starving, you're more than willing to eat anything that anybody offers you. Sometimes what others give you can be bad for you. It can kill you. Sometimes what they offer you can be good for you, but because they have so much pain inside them, you walk away. So a couple of things need to happen. You run into a Socrates, and you don't know why, you don't know how, you don't know when, you don't know who. You have this intuition, this feeling you can't really describe. You like him, but you don't know why, or her. I mean, the spiritual teachers, for the most part, are just men. Women are no good at this stuff. I always say that, said it for the past almost 35 years, and every time I say it, there's a woman out there. It's true, they're just not good. Okay. Hello. Should I stop?
Keep going.
So before we go any further with Socrates, you need to kind of understand one thing. If you go back to Tammy's question on Monday about mentorship, whatever it is that you want to learn under the sun, there are people who have gone that particular path. And none of us are perfect, none of us have full knowledge, but what you need is to find someone who's gone to where you want to go. They're not perfect, but they know more than you do. I'm not a scholar on Socrates, but what you need to know, I know more about Socrates than you do, and that should be enough for you. If you walk around asking for someone who has perfect knowledge about Socrates, you'll be profoundly disappointed. Okay. Two things happen when you run into a Socrates. The attraction to Socrates could either be immediate or it can be gradual. Gradual means following. It's like you hang out with a friend, 6 months later, one morning you wake up and you say, I shouldn't be feeling this way and I shouldn't be thinking this way, but I think I love him.
Yeah.
That's the gradual process. That initially you don't really like this person, then you begin to like him a little bit, then you guys hang out, you create a history, and lo and behold, one morning you say, man, I have these intense, intimate feelings about this person. The other can be immediate. In other words, you see someone, you don't know why, and you just say, I want you. Rarely is the second scenario happen to people. In other words, most often you gravitate towards a Socrates or a Jesus Christ or a Malcolm X very, very slowly. And oftentimes the umbilical gets cut. In other words, there comes a point where you just say, you know, my life is busy, I got to do this and I got to do that. So you lose the opportunity. Whether it's gradual or immediate, Socrates is like a Costco or a Trader Joe's. He or she has something to sell you. The question is, are you at the right place to buy it? If you are full, there's a good chance there's going to be a wrestling match. You don't believe in God, I believe in God. You're going to convince me that I am stupid in believing God. I have to convince you that you're stupid in not in believing God. Okay? And I don't really know if eventually I'm going to be pinned by you or you're going to be pinned by me. Okay? Most often when people come to a Socrates, they are full of their own stuff. Beliefs, experiences. I mean, that's why when you go to a therapist office, for example, I don't know if any of you in this class have ever gone to a therapist office, but if you do go to a therapist office, you go in there full of emotions, which blind you. All of them do. Okay? And your poor therapist has to sit back very, very slowly, kindly, gently, walk you through all these emotions. And that may take sometimes 5 years, sometimes 50 years, sometimes 500 years, and sometimes just impossible. Okay? In other words, they have to empty you, detach you, neutralize you. Okay? So, if you find a Socrates who's young, they'll patiently work with you. If you find a Socrates who's a little older, they got no time for nonsense. They just walk away. Now, what all these different kinds of Socrates give you is the following. You're looking at your life from down here, ground level. This is what you're used to. I don't like my father, period. Socrates doesn't give a care about how you feel down here. He wants to pull you up and have you look at your life and your feelings about your father from up here. The problem with looking at your father from up here, Tyrell, is that you get to see how his life was, is, and will be. And now what this forces you to do is now you will carry two crosses. The emotions you have about your father and the new emotions now you have with the knowledge that you have. Now it may be that the knowledge given to you by Socrates is too much and you go back to the place where you're comfortable. I hate my father and I want it to stay that way. This freedom, it costs too much. Now one of the things that Socrates does on the spiritual quest, or Jesus Christ, or a Malcolm X is the following. Their presence. Have you ever been to the cemetery? Any cemetery? Okay. Go to the cemetery today and imagine that under the ground, it's not Joe Schmo, it's actually Tyrell. One of the things that happens when you encounter the spiritual quest is that your teacher, whoever that teacher may be, a man, a woman, a dog, a cat, it makes things down here irrelevant. And it's painful. I mean, you want to love your husband, but all of a sudden he or she becomes irrelevant. You want to love your kids, but all of a sudden they become irrelevant. Not completely. Okay. You want to attend school, take classes, graduate, but you find the diploma to be tasteless. And that causes a good amount of pain, not to mention conflict. Now, there are different kinds of Socrates. Some are quiet, some are noisy. Some work with your emotions, some work with your psychology, i.e. history, some work with your mind, some work with your body, some work with everything. Now, you may say, I want to learn this way, but you're in no position to tell your teacher how you want to learn. The only thing you can offer a good teacher is just you being there and making sure that your mouth is shut and your ears are open. Okay. So Socrates and any spiritual teacher considers themselves, I suppose, to be like a gadfly. Tiny little animal, humongous fangs. They sit on you and they begin to bite you. With every bite you go, ow. It's painful. I mean, we are not creatures who enjoy pain, any kind of pain, be it physical or emotional. I mean, consider you not being able to buy the tickets for Ariana Grande. I mean, you think about it, it bothers you, disturbs you. It robs a comfort and solace from you. And how do you find the promised land? By someone offering you tickets. And given that we are not creatures who enjoy pain, we always look for things to come to us easy. But Socrates has something to offer you. But what he offers you is painful. He's not going to care if you're married. He's not going to care if you consider yourself a man or a woman or in between. None of those things matter. Your age is irrelevant. Your passions about life is irrelevant. Socrates wants to sell you what lives inside him, and that is the kingdom of God. You want to call it spirituality? Fine, doesn't really matter. Karl Marx, his way of spirituality is by giving you some ideas what justice looks like, what fairness looks like, what poverty feels like, what it feels to be exploited on a daily basis, to be whipped physically and emotionally. I mean, they're all saying the same thing in different ways. Okay. Now, what happens when Socrates injects his fangs into your meat? Well, you jump. What happens when you jump, Tyrell? You're an inch off of the ground. What does that inch do as you fly up? Just an inch. That inch forces you to look down. And when you look down, what happens to life? It looks smaller, not as important, not as interesting. But Socrates doesn't keep biting you. He says, you know, Tyrell, I'm really tired now. I got to go. Socrates leaves, but you are left with the experience. You've been walking for the past 5, 15, 20, 30 years. All of a sudden, without any warning, you just jumped. And upon jumping, you saw life a little differently. Now comes the conflict. Which is the real Tyrell? The Tyrell who walks or the Tyrell who jumped? Oh, you like the Tyrell that walks, that lays in bed next to her companion and has a good time, but you also love the Tyrell who lay with another and in love. The laying is the same, but the emotions connected to them very, very different. You try to escape Socrates wherever you see him because you don't know what to do with the conflict, the thoughts, the feelings. But you also feel that you no longer belong to the place you've been occupying for the past 20, 30 years. And then you say, you know what? I'm going to text Socrates. And as you're texting, all you got to do is hit the send button. And you say, what are you doing? You have a good life. What's wrong with you? And it just stays in your inbox, the draft. But you can't stop thinking about Socrates. And then as you're just walking like the way you've been for the past many years, you just get fed up. And you don't even wait to go home to your desktop. You just take out your cell phone, you go to your inbox and you click. And there is, of course, the niceties of conversation you will have with Socrates. And then he jumps on you. And then he bites you again. But this time the fangs go a little deeper. More painful. But you jump higher now. And as you jump higher, you look down and life gets just a bit more smaller, a bit more irrelevant, a bit more unimportant. But as you jump higher, something really interesting happens. You get that much closer to the sun, i.e. truth. You feel its warmth, oh man, and you enjoy it. You don't know what it is. You don't know why it is so. And despite all the pain, you say, no, I really like this. And I don't know why. I must be crazy. And then, of course, your conflict grows. Now you eat once a day. Instead of 3 times a day, you just eat your breakfast. And your mom asks you, what do you want me to make for you? I can cook anything you like. You say, Mom, I really don't care. Give me a piece of toast. It's fine. How about your favorite dish? I don't really care. Don't trouble yourself. Your 5 senses, you know. I mean, they are wonderful gifts. You see someone attractive out there. I mean, you're in the presence of beauty, man. You know, you walk on college, there is chicken tikka masala, you smell it. That's a beautiful temptation to have. You know? You go to Ross, you feel the fabric, and you say, man, this is so silky, so smooth, I want to buy that. I mean, that's what your senses give you. And all of a sudden, because of Socrates, your senses are no longer valuable. You don't really care about the incoming experiences. And then you go to Socrates. What have you done to me? I don't know what lives inside you. I want it, I can't get it, and I can't go back living my own life. You've messed me up. And so you just walk away from Socrates. Because none of us enjoy a life that's filled with chaos. And you won't contact Socrates for 5 months, maybe 6 months, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. All of a sudden, you know, you repress Socrates, it goes into the dungeons. At a certain point, and no one knows how this stuff really happens. You wake up, you're married, you've been married for 50 years, you got like 1,000 kids, your life is full, and all of a sudden, without any warning, Socrates. I mean, you've been occupying with kids, with husbands and wives, and all this stuff, but all of a sudden, Socrates. Maybe you have a dream, who the hell knows? And you just say, I can't do it anymore. Dard bar man rizo darmanam makon. Give me pain, not its remedy, just give me pain. Because every time, as far back as I can remember, every time you bit me, I flew higher. And in flying higher, I got closer. And then Socrates keeps biting and biting and biting. And something very strange happens to you, Tyrell. Now you encounter 2 really, really mysterious dilemmas. Not only have you fallen in love with Socrates, you've also fallen in love with the pain inflicted upon you by Socrates. How could you love pain? How could you all of a sudden love depression and being lonely or being alone? How could you all of a sudden love the act of prayer or worship, however way it comes to you? In your case, you worship by going to Ariana Grande. Her voice is like prayer to you. It gives you wings. And for 5 hours, you are removed from the troubles of life. It's just short term. You don't need to worry about chakras and energy points, and they're just garbage. Right now, آب کمجو تشنگی آور به دست تا بجوشد آبد از بالا و پست. Right now, what you need is not water. What you need is thirst. Once you become thirsty, then you will look for water. When you're not thirsty, you become like me. You just go to Costco and you buy those 84 packs bottled waters and just put them in the garage. I've had these water bottles for 5 years. I'm never thirsty, so I never go to the garage. I never drink water. Then there are moments where Socrates says, Tyrell, I'm really tired of just biting you. Can I take a break? He said, but why? Just bite me some more, please. And then there comes a point where your wings are fully grown and fully mature and very, very strong. You don't need to be bitten anymore. Socrates now lives inside you. You're able to bite yourself. And whenever, like Tammy, you sit there watching TV, you feel guilty. Whenever she reads the Bible and she doesn't feel the words, she feels guilty. You know what she has on the inside, Tyrell? Conscience. She's tasted something. She wants it back. But she can't get it back because it's not on her time. It's magic. Now, once Socrates' job is done, which is by making sure that your wings are strong enough to carry you all the way to the sun, Socrates no longer replies to your emails, doesn't really care. Socrates now lives inside you. You and Socrates are one and the same. Read the Gospel of John. You see me, you see the Father. So, is it?
You mentioned the existentialism. Why is that?
So, hopefully, one day you'll become a mother. Okay. Or maybe not so hopefully, I don't know. These days, everything is a question mark. And your son, who happens to be 3, will come to you and say, Mom, what is porn? It's the first time you hear your 3-year-old son asking you about pornography. And it's not a pleasant thing to hear for you as a mother. You know, you wake up every morning to take care of your kids. You try to educate them, give them good language, give them good manners, and all of a sudden they shock you, you know, by asking you or saying a word that just rubs you the wrong way. And you say, where did he hear this from? Well, Dad watches porn every day for like 10 hours. And you try to change the subject very, very quickly. How about we go play soccer? How about if I give you ice cream? How about Cheerios? Let's watch Bluey together. Or Bugs Bunny, whatever the case may be. And you realize you've done something really, really remarkable, which is the following. There is nothing wrong about porn. There is nothing wrong about having a conversation, a healthy conversation about pornography. There is nothing wrong with looking at pornography as a piece of art. Okay? But at the age of 3, it could be hazardous to your health. Okay. Imagine someone who is working really hard to provide food for their family. And they're okay with going to work 9 to 5, going to Costco, shopping, bringing home food for the kids, taking them out once in a while, having a good time, just being a family person. But then on the radio, as they're driving home, they're listening to this new age piece of shit of a guru or a teacher. Be authentic. You're unique. You're special. You're this, you're that. And God forbid if this particular person, who's been a family person for a long, long time, happens to be at this particular place in life where he's actually able to hear what the message is. Now he's conflicted. For the past 50 years, I've been providing for my family. What has it gotten me? Nothing. I work like a mule. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, my life means nothing. And then they become less of a family person. Okay? And I suppose the response to your question would be the following. When you broadcast the philosophy, okay, to people who are not really in the position, hello, then you'll contaminate them. Yeah. Consider yourself. You are 16. You're in love. Whether or not this emotion of love will be protected inside you depends really on how you're able to process the breakup. If you can't process it the right way, all your future relationships will be jeopardized. There is nothing wrong with love. Right time, right place. The 19th and 20th century were very interesting times. You had World War I, and then you had World War II. And then you have the Industrial Revolution. All the hopes and dreams that human beings had about there is something about us that is good and noble and kind and compassionate. Everything got destroyed by the Industrial Revolution. Faith got destroyed. And all of a sudden came this brand new philosophy. And everybody thought themselves to be just regular chaps, just walking around and waiting for themselves to die. They do the best they can with their life. No one is looking for happiness because it doesn't exist, But all of a sudden you have this brand new philosophy that promises the kingdom of God here, And then you kind of look at your life and you're in doubt if you're doing the right thing. There is no faith left. There's no truth left. Everything is relative. Perspectivism is everywhere now. There is no super glue that binds people together. All of us are walking around, there's a piece of you over there, another piece of you over there. It's all like fragmented human beings walking around. And then what happens is there is this tiny little part of you that's still whole, looks at another human being, and that tiny little piece of you falls in love with another piece. Okay? What you don't really know is that inside you are all these different other larks that don't really like this particular lark. And now somehow you want to survive. Okay? So, the point is, cults used to be around, and cults used to be good. Anyways, let's move on. No, it's okay. I'm on. Good job. Right. Everything I said today was kind of wrong. So let me go back and fix it. Any questions or comments before we? Yes, Joey. Avi? No? Alexis? Any? Avi? Yes, Adrian. Tyrell? Lark? Go ahead. Lark reminds me of this story. It's about this man who goes to this humongous mosque. It's like a church for the Muslims, and sits and prays and asks God for some favor, and waits and waits and waits. Nothing happens. And then he gets really angry at this big mosque that, despite its stature, it can't really bring to fruition any of the dreams and wishes that people have. So out of desperation, he goes to this very, very tiny mosque. Everything about this mosque is falling apart. And he sits there and he prays. And 10 minutes later, his prayers were answered. Angrily, he walks to the big mosque and says to it, have you no shame? I mean, look at the size of you. Despite your size and stature, you're unable to bring wishes true. But look at that tiny mosque. She's only 16. And every second she has a question. You guys are like ancient, and you got no questions. Yes?
Okay, my question is if having a core self, like knowing yourself really well is important. Like with someone happy and life.
So, let me kind of give you some historical background about a certain tradition. And all traditions function the same way. The Jews initially didn't have a heaven or a hell. The Jews initially didn't have a God who sees them on the judgment day and judges them. They just simply believe that once you die, you just go into the earth and that's it, it's finished. They called it the Sheol. In India, initially, there was no reincarnation. Initially, there was no karma. All you had to do was just see what gives you pleasure in life, hopefully the healthy kinds, pursue it, and then die. That's it. All the new philosophies that these different cultures adopted eventually had to do with the fact that they were exposed to a philosophy that they thought to be very, very attractive. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're majoring in math, and you're really good at math. And you take a class, say a psychology class, and the instructor happens to be so good. And every time you walk away from the class, you just take the class with you. You think about it, you feel about it, you talk about it with your friends, with your parents, and you realize that little by little as the days go by, you occupy, or psychology occupies more space inside you. You still love math, but as you're doing math, you think about psychology. But there comes a point where you break the news to your parents. I think I'm changing majors from math to psychology. And the point is the following. Ultimately, the self has to come to you through an advertisement. Now, you may love yourself, okay? But then you run into Tammy. And Tammy, her presence may make you feel a certain way. And then she'll begin to talk. And then her words will make you feel more ways. And then you'll become interested in the way she speaks. But you know that speech comes from her head. She thinks, but thinking comes from experience and how well she's processed the experiences. All of a sudden you realize you're interested in what she has to say. The more Tammy occupies you, the less you occupy yourself. And then you mimic her mannerism, the way she speaks, the way she dresses, the way her body language is, and you become more of her than of you. Okay? So the more gospel you read, the more of Jesus' attributes you will have inside you, if you approach the books in the right way. Okay? So when you talk about the core self, you need to run into someone who has a core self. Now, your assumed core self will wrestle with this core self. The two of you will wrestle. You will either get disgusted, walk away, or you will feel the pangs, a little too painful, then you will walk away, or despite the pain, you'll stick around. And the more you frequent with this person, okay, the more you would want to be like him or her. And then how you define your core self is through this other person. You know, she did psychology, I want to do psychology. She got married, I want to get married. She had kids, I want to have kids. She has a Tesla, I want a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
She doesn't invite people to her house who drink or smoke with this, that's what I want. And all of a sudden you realize everything about your life has changed, all because of her. Now that is a core self. Books can't give it to you, unless you just read the same books over and over and over again. You know. So everything about life really is advertisements. Everything is. Now, granted, there are some people who just are born with magic inside them. How that's created, I don't really know. But what you need to understand is the following. It's always better to have a teacher who's not a genius, a teacher who's worked really, really hard. Jesus is no good because he doesn't know how it feels to be attached to a wife or kids or parents or a culture or community. So when you go to him and say, listen, your ideas are, disturbing my life, he would say, well, that's fine. Moses, on the other hand, because he's been there, because he's done that, he can kind of train you the right way, So you need both. So if you were to learn chess from a Magnus Carlsen, he'd be a bad teacher. If you wanted to learn piano from a Beethoven, an awful teacher. If on the other hand, your teacher was a young woman or a young man who had to sacrifice a lot of things, sacrifice a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of pain, a lot of difficulties to become good at piano, that person understands the difficulty that you have to go through to become proficient at that particular craft.
Is it better to take all the things that you're influenced by other people and the books you read, kind of add that to your core self, or to kind of spectate it all passively?
No, right now you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, you can do. It doesn't really matter. But once you encounter a Socrates or the person you want to emulate, then everything about you must be put to pause for a long, 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 long time. Look, right now you have a CPU. It's a certain way you process ideas and information experiences. You'll continue to do that until you hit a dead end. Once you start seeking help, should the right person come into your life, then what you'll do is you want to kind of take the stuff that lives inside their head, how they process stuff, and adopt it. And that's going to take you about 5-10 years, maybe longer.
Is only one person like that in the whole life?
No, it depends on the student's capacity. Your first teacher becomes the foundation, okay? And all the other people that run into your life, they kind of add to the foundation. The first person is the concrete, and then the slab, and then you put the 2x4s and the drywall and the shingles and all that.
Do you ever get confused?
No. I think you can have moments, unless you just lose interest. Once you lose interest, then I suppose you have reached a certain level of completion.
Is it possible not to
Jesus.
want to?
It's not really up to you. I think there is a certain point where you just are not as interested as before. But when it comes to wisdom or knowledge, I think, look, there comes a point where whatever intellectual information or spiritual information experience you've had, there comes a point where your body is beginning to ache because you're 85. God is not going to help you, Kaiser is. So your questions are always going to be there, but they're going to be related to different things in life. Right now your questions may be about Jesus Christ, Once you have a breakup, I hope it never happens. Once a parent dies, I hope it never happens. Once you lose a pet or whatever, the nature of your questions begin to change. And every time your questions change, you're on a quest or a pursuit to find an answer.
So what's the difference between Kaiser and God when I'm 80?
Well, when you're 80, you make sure that Kaiser gives you the right pills for your cholesterol. Is it true that at the age of 80, you can have moments where your body leaves you alone and you can sit and read the book? Absolutely. But those moments are very, very few. As you know, next week, Wednesday, there is no school. There is a professional development day. I think. I'll double check. It is? So yeah, no class. Monday, though, there is school. It's good to see all of you. Yeah,
I
Tanya.
have one small question, quick question.
Yeah, yeah.
Does every Socrates have a Socrates? So in other words, does every teacher have a teacher?
Bye. Bye. Very, very rare you can find a few people who have no teachers, but that's extremely rare. There is a Indian guy who was considered to be the silent sage of India, Ramana Maharshi. He had no teacher, he just had an experience, and that was enough. You had a guy in Iraq, his name is Uwais Qarani. So there are some people, if the Jesus story is true, he's another guy who didn't really need a teacher. He just had a nice processing mechanism. He could just sit and process things the right way. But for the majority of us, you need a mentor. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I think because that narrative that you need a teacher, that narrative is absent in the Western tradition, the teacher-student relationship. Because that narrative is absent, what you have in the West is you have any 20-year-old walking around saying, I'm a teacher because I've had this experience. Okay? Have they had the experience? Yes. Has it been an uplifting experience? Yes. Are they able to process it? Probably not. Are they able to express it the right way? Probably not. And given the fact that America creates lonely, miserable, depressed people, everybody's looking for the wrong kind of attention. So that's something you need to be very, very careful of. Having said that, it's good to see all of you. Have a nice day.